So, there's a big change coming in 2025 for how your salary gets taxed here in Nigeria. And you're probably wondering what that really means for your bank account, right? Well, stick around, because we're about to demystify the whole thing step by step.
You know that feeling. You look at your payslip, you see that top-line salary number, and then you see the number that actually hits your account. And there's a gap. Where does all that money go? Well, today, we're going to follow the money and find out exactly what's happening.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the new law itself. Then we'll figure out what actually counts as income. After that, we'll look at all the deductions that come out before the taxman even looks at it. We'll calculate the new PAE tax, and then the big reveal, your final take-home pay. And we'll wrap up with why this whole change is happening in the first place.
So, what's all the fuss about? It all comes down to something called the Finance Act 2025. And listen, this isn't just some small update. It's a pretty significant overhaul of how personal income tax works. And it's going to affect everything from how much of your income is tax-free to the kinds of deductions you can make.
To make this all make sense, let's stop talking in hypotheticals and use some real numbers. We're going to follow the journey of someone earning a gross monthly salary of 200,000 naira. Let's see exactly how these new rules play out for them.
Okay, first things first. Before we can start subtracting anything, we need to know what our starting point is. What does the government actually consider to be your income? Because, it's often a little more than just your basic salary.
The official term they use is emoluments. It's a fancy word, I know, but the definition is super broad. It basically means any kind of compensation you get from your job. Not just your salary, but also allowances, bonuses, and even non-cash benefits. It's the whole package. So, in the real world, your gross income is the sum of all these different parts. Your basic pay, plus things like your housing and transport allowance, maybe some overtime pay, or a bonus. For our case study, we're just going to assume that 200,000 naira a month covers all of that.
All right, so we have our gross income. For our example, that's 2.4 million naira for the year. Now for the really important part. The law actually lets you remove certain amounts before any tax is calculated. And this is absolutely crucial, because the smaller that initial number, the less tax you're going to pay.
And here's one of the biggest changes, a real game changer. The old system, the consolidated relief allowance, it's gone, abolished. What's replaced it is a new rent relief. This means you can now deduct 20% of what you pay in rent, up to a maximum of 500,000 naira a year. For our person, we'll assume they can claim that full amount.
But wait, there's more. On top of that, there are a few mandatory contributions that come out. You've got your 8% for pension, 2.5% for the National Housing Fund or NHF, and another 5% for the National Health Insurance Authority. These are all taken from your gross income before we even think about tax.
So let's do the math. We start with that 2.4 million annual gross. We subtract the 500,000 for rent, then the 192,000 for pension, 60,000 for the housing fund, and 120,000 for health insurance. And that leaves us with our final taxable income, 1,528,000 naira. This is the magic number we'll use for the next step. And now for the main event. It's time to actually calculate the pay-as-you-earn tax. We take that taxable income figure we just worked out, the 1.528 million, and we apply the brand new 2025 tax rates.
Okay, just look at this comparison. It tells you everything you need to know. The old system was, well, it was a bit complicated, and tax kicked in right away at 7%. The new 2025 system, it's way simpler, and it starts at 0%. This change like here is going to be a huge relief for so many people.
Seriously, if you remember just one thing from all this, let it be this. The first 800,000 naira of your taxable income is now completely 100% tax-free. That's a massive increase, and it's the core of this new law.
Okay, so let's apply this to our person. Their taxable income was 1,528,000 naira. Step 1, the first 800,000 of that is taxed at 0%. So the tax is 0. Simple. Step 2, we see what's left, which is 728,000. That amount falls into the next tax bracket, which is 15%. So 15% of that is 109,200 naira. That's the total tax for the entire year. Divide that by 12, and you get a monthly tax of just 9,100 naira.
We've done all the heavy lifting. We've figured out the statutory deductions, we've calculated the tax, so now it's time to put it all together and find out what our employee earning 200,000 naira a month actually gets to keep.
So here's a quick recap of everything that comes out of that 200,000 Naira salary each month. We've got 16,000 for pension, 5,000 for the housing fund, 10,000 for health insurance, and that 9,100 in tax we just figured out. All told, the total monthly deduction is 40,100 Naira. And there you have it, the final number. From a gross monthly salary of 200,000 Naira, the take-home pay is 159,900 Naira. Now the big question is that any better? Well, let's just focus on the tax. Under the old system, the monthly tax for this person was over 16,000 Naira. Now it's just 9,100. That is a huge tax cut. The tax relief is very, very real.
So, we've been deep in the weeds with the numbers, but let's just zoom out for a second. What's the big idea here? Why did the government make these changes in the first place?
This quote right here really gets to the heart of it. The whole reason they raised that tax-free amount to 800,000 Naira a year was to line it up with the new minimum wage. The goal is pretty straightforward, to make sure the country's lowest earners aren't getting burdened with income tax. So, if you're going to walk away from this with a few key points, let them be these 4. 1. If your annual income is under 800K, it's now tax-free. 2. Rent relief is the new thing, consolidated relief is out. 3. The tax brackets are way simpler now and the rates are lower for most people. And 4. Don't forget that all those other deductions, pension, housing, health, they do a lot of work to lower your taxable income from the very beginning.
At the end of the day, these changes are designed to put more money back into the pockets of millions of Nigerians. So now that you know exactly how it all works,